And then, yeah, let's talk a little bit about Cosmos and why Cosmos. Maybe you can compare a little bit, because obviously Ethereum also has a roadmap to fix a lot of these issues. They go more the roll-up route, and I think Cosmos more has this app chain philosophy. So maybe you can explain a little bit, like, what excited you guys more about the Cosmos roadmap and this app chain thesis, and what parts of Cosmos technology specifically you are most excited about to be using.
Yeah, as you mentioned, the whole thought of the app chain thesis. And to give some context here, we have 1,000 order placements and cancels per second on DYDX, with like minimal to no fees currently. So the question came from is like, which chain will allow for that? And no blockchains, Cosmos included, even came close to that. So like, even if you pay like the most gas fees ever, the throughput just doesn't exist on any L1. So it is, the system, like we said, is bounded specifically on its consensus mechanism. So therefore, we decided to have an off-chain network of order books similar to V3. There's an order book that is off-chain, but on V4, it'll be in a decentralized network that doesn't rely on the consensus mechanism. And this allowed for the scalability of the order book by many degrees of magnitude. And yeah, because the bottleneck would have been the consensus mechanism otherwise, like I mentioned. So we figured out that to develop our own order book and matching engine, the best way to do this would be an app chain built on the Cosmos, specifically on Tendermint. And then I think the first thought was that we could potentially settle to another blockchain, but then we came back to that original definition of decentralization, where you could only be so decentralized as like the whole system is only based on the weakest part, like the least decentralized part. So at that point, there's no real reason to roll up to another L1. Why not just like build the L1 ourselves? And because that's the maximum decentralization that we can have.
I think that's a good learning also from this video, is that a system is only as decentralized as the most or the least decentralized part of the whole system is, because, like, again, there's so many different layers. But I've seen also people, and there's also, I made a couple of tweets, and then people said, hey, why didn't you launch on Polkadot or in this ecosystem or not that ecosystem? Was there any sort of short list of other ecosystems that you were evaluating to potentially build on? Or was it like you did your research and you're like, okay, it's Cosmos, and like no other ecosystem can, is suitable for what we want to do?
Yeah, really good question. I think we evaluated most, if not all, ecosystems. It came down to the app chain thesis once again, and specifically the Cosmos SDK, the Tendermint tools to be able to build our validator network, and specifically the thinking behind these off-chain order books. Pretty much only the Cosmos SDK really allowed us to build out that model. So yeah, it was mostly the infrastructure and the SDK. I think we are very product focused at DYDX, whereas like we do believe and want to support the Cosmos ecosystem as much as we can, although product comes first to us, right? So like when we are developing the DYDX chain, and as we develop it, our thesis is just like, what is the best product experience, and kind of agnostic to the ecosystem.
Yeah, also when I see Antonio tweeting or on podcasts, he's always saying product. That's what you mostly focus on. But yeah, that's super important, and UX obviously in that context as well. But what do you think? I mean, you talked about the Cosmos SDK. Do you think the Cosmos SDK is like the killer feature of Cosmos? I mean, as and my audience is mostly cosmonauts. We're mostly proud and excited, I guess, about IBC, the interoperability standard in Cosmos that connects all sovereign zones and chains in Cosmos. Is that also something that factored into your decision, IBC, or what was it purely the flexibility of the Cosmos SDK?
Yeah, it was honestly mostly the SDK. DYDX might use the IBC, and if it will likely be for bridging assets over. This is not yet confirmed, but obviously it was announced by USDC that by Circle, that USDC will be minted in Cosmos. So depending on how that is done, you can imagine bridging assets over to the DYDX chain through IBC.
Yeah, that was a huge announcement. They will launch a consumer chain to the Cosmos Hub, actually, so that's pretty big. Yeah.